Okay, in our next problem, we have x squared minus 7 equals 0. So again, we start this just like we always do. Draw the river, and let's begin the process of getting x alone. So we need to do what to get rid of this 7? Do its opposite. Let's add 7 to both sides. Because what you do on one side of the river, yeah, you do to the other. All right, that leaves you with x squared equals 0 plus 7, 7. Super. And we said a few minutes ago, how do you get rid of a square? What's the opposite of a square? Good, you remembered, a square root. And what do I have to put in front of a square root that has a number inside of it? Good, a plus and a minus. When I am solving, I have to acknowledge that. So this square and square root cancel each other out. And we have two things to look at here. Depending on who wrote your question and their specific instructions, also if this is an open-ended question versus a multiple choice question, they might stop right there with positive and negative square root of 7. And truthfully, that is the most correct possible solution. But they also might say that they want you to go get that in its decimal version, which is just fine and very easy to do. You just bring out your calculator, Control Dock for a new page. You have add your calculator, and let's go find the square root. So to get the square root, you push Control and then x squared, which is right next to the number 4, and put in your 7. So when you type it, you don't type the plus and the minus. You just put the square root of 7, and you get a decimal value of 2.64575. Usually there's this question of, well, how many decimal spaces do I have to use? Well, you use however many they told you to use. And if they didn't tell you how many to use, you use them all. And it's not like it's going to hurt you to write that down anyways. So x equals plus and minus 2.64575. These two answers are essentially equivalent. Just one is in a slightly more exact form because there's actually more decimals out here to the far right of what we currently have. We just don't have time or space to write them all. And so we again have two real solutions. Okay, I want you to try to do the next two examples, and if you need any help, come and talk to me. Just go through that process of solving for x and see where it leads you. Hint, 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 hint. Can you take the square root of a negative number? If you're not sure, see what your calculator says. Alrighty, let's go check out our first word problem for today. Find the length of a side of a square that has an area of 225 meters squared. Okay, this is the exact kind of problem that I'm expecting to come up on your state tests, is these word problems. So define what shape? A square. So how do you find the area of a square? You might say length times width. Sure, that's fine. But with a square, we know that all of the sides are the same. So it's a side squared. Remember seeing that in junior high? I hope so. So this 225, is that an area or is that a side length? That's an area. So that means this is 225 equals that side squared. Okay? So how do you find out the length of the side? Square root. And yes, we still take the plus and the minus of the square root. And we're going to talk about that. What is the square root of 225? Can you find it? Do you remember it? You can always go check that in your calculator real quick. I'll wait for you. That's right, it's 15. Now, new discussion. If you're finding the length of anything, can you have a negative value? Can length be negative? No, it cannot. Length can only be positive. So that means that my final answer, the side length, has to be positive 15 meters. And there you go. It's done. Finished. That's not so bad. Let's do the next example that they have for us. Find the radius. I need to find a radius of a circle. Ooh. And that circle has an area of 121 yards squared. So do you remember the formula to find the area of a circle? It's pi r squared. It's been a minute, hasn't it? So this 121 is the area. So it's going to come in right here. So let's go solve for the radius. Let's draw the river. What do I get rid of first? The pi. How do I get rid of the pi? Do I add it, subtract it, multiply it, or divide it? Divide it. You do the opposite of what it's doing right now. Okay? So we're going to leave this as it is. 121 over pi equals the radius squared. And now, how do you get rid of the square? That's right, square root. So remember, take the plus and minus of the square root of 121 over pi. Whoa. Sorry about that. Technical difficulties. So my square root and my square cancel out. So what's the square root of 121? Do you remember? It's 11. But I don't have the square root of pi yet. Okay. So technically, you could say this is done. It's very not attractive. Very, very not attractive. But it's done. So again, we have this question of positive versus negative. Are you going to leave it that way? Can you have a negative radius? No, you can't have a negative radius because it is a length. So my radius will be a positive 11 over the square root of pi. Now you're super done. Okay, so I want you to try the next 2 word problems. And if you need any help, come and talk to me. And then we'll do one more example together. All right, last problem for this packet. We need to find the value of x for the square. This is a square. And then, if necessary, round to the nearest tenth, if necessary. Okay. So being that this is a square, this is my area of 28 feet squared. So my side length is 4x, and this is 4x. Super. So the formula to find the area of a square is side squared. We know that this particular area is 28. And we know that the side is 4x squared. All right, let's start the process. What do we need to do? So let's square this quantity. So 4 squared is 16x squared. Great. Now, how do we go ahead and get rid of the 16? Yep, divide on both sides because the 16 and the x were multiplying. So I have 28 over 16 equals x squared. How do I get rid of this square? The same way we've been getting rid of it for this whole lesson. Square root. But remember to take your plus and your minus. Now this is an ugly little fraction right here, and truthfully we could have simplified this. We could have made this a lot more user-friendly. So let's do that. So 28 and 16. What are those both divisible by? Excuse me. Let's rewrite this just so we can see it. These are both divisible by 4. So let's do that. 28 divided by 4 is 7. 16 divided by 4 is 4. And we can go ahead and cancel those out right quick for the square root and the square. All right. And then, does 7 square root clean? No. Does 4 square root clean? It sure does. It's 2. Oh, Not pretty, but not so bad. And then that last question that we've been having to discuss again and again. Can a length be negative? Remember, this is a length. So it must be positive. So my final answer will be a positive square root of 7 divided by 2 equals x. And now I'm done. All right, I want you to try to find the value of x for the triangle below. And remember, to find the area of a triangle is 1/2 times the base times the height for your formula. If you need any help, let me know.